Welcome to Holistic Accountant Podcast, where we aim to showcase how adopting a holistic approach in accounting and tax maximizes value for clients. Beyond traditional tasks like preparing financial statements and tax returns, a holistic accountant focuses on offering advice that maximizes personal wealth on an after-tax basis. If you enjoy this episode, please consider leaving a rating and sharing it with those who might also benefit. And to ensure you stay updated, subscribe to our weekly email. The link is in the show notes. Okay, today Mena and I would like to talk about tips on how to effectively manage your team. You know, quite often you hear people commenting about how much easier it would be to run a business if you didn't have either clients or staff. And quite often staff tends to be a common complaint, I think, in terms of the hassles of running a business. And I think that there's certain things that you can do, certainly in our experience, that to sort of alleviate that pressure. But also I think it's about being realistic that, you know, if you have the larger the team you have, it's probably going to be a thing that you're going to have to dedicate more and more time towards. So the first tip that I'd like to share is if you want to run a great business, you really need to have a great team. You know, you can't build a fantastic quality business with a really poor quality team. And quite often it's what you find. It's not uncommon that you'll have, you know, the person that started the business that is fantastic at running the business and working in the business and all those sorts of things. And then they surround themselves with team members that aren't so great. And the problem in that situation is that they've got to do so much more work to kind of offset the negative of having someone in a role that's not performing adequately. And so what it does, it's the opposite to leveraging your time. It actually destroys your time. And in that situation, those people would probably be better off just running the business completely by themselves without any staff, because at least they're not having to fix other people's mistakes. So if you really want to run a great business, and if you can look at your product, your pricing, or your people. And so if you're not achieving the results that you want to achieve, and you've thought of, your product is very good and your pricing is correct, then maybe it's your people, and that's something that you're going to have to come to terms with.
And I think that it's not only comes down to performance, because what we found, particularly in our business, is culture is incredibly important, along with the fact that they got to align with your values. And because if you don't have the right person that's client facing, doing the right role, they could be great at what they do in terms of data entry or for example, let's speak about the accounting business. They can produce a great set of financial reports and a tax return, but if they can't converse or relate to clients or find opportunities to help clients get better results, then they're not going to be doing you any favours. You're basically carrying them on your back the whole time.
And sometimes you can have people that are culturally a fantastic fit, like they've got fantastic values, their effort is 110%. They're doing their best, but they're just in the wrong job. It's just beyond them, or it doesn't really suit their skill level. So sometimes you hear about, this advice, if you've got great people in terms of cultural fit and values and they're lovely people and they're trying to do their best, that you should persevere. But in reality, leaving someone in a role that's drowning, that's not thriving, really isn't serving them. One of the best questions I think we can ask with respect to managing a team is, would you enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team? And it's a really good question to ask yourself periodically, maybe a couple of times a year. And the key word here is enthusiastically. Would you enthusiastically rehire? And it really forces you to think about, is the person a right fit? Because quite often we find that, if we've got a team member, they can be difficult to replace. It's time consuming, it's risky, sometimes the devil is better than the one that you don't, and so it can be painful, and we make excuses for the people because we don't want to go through that painful process of replacing them. Whereas the question, will you enthusiastically rehire, allows you to separate the fact that, they are already sitting in the chair, they're in the role doing the work. And unless you can answer yes to that question, then you've got a people problem.
And staff relationships are key, Stuart, I find, because although you might have a staff member that's not performing, you might be able to uncover why they're not performing by having a relationship with them. So it could be for the fact that their voice isn't heard, for example. They want to sort of contribute ideas, but they feel like it won't get anywhere. Or they feel like they might not be in the right role within the business. They might be better doing something else, whether it be a more senior role or a sidestep to a different type of role in the business. So it's important to have a good relationship with all your staff to understand how they're progressing, what's limiting them. But as you mentioned before, sometimes you just got to face the music, and if they're not performing, they're not performing.
And you've got to adopt your own style. So having a relationship doesn't necessarily mean you become best friends. In fact, that sometimes can really muddy a relationship, and it's not that's not advisable to do. But for some people that comes naturally. For other people, they don't want to they want to keep that sort of separation. So building that relationship doesn't have to be personal per se, but it's really just making sure, as Mena said, the person is heard, that if they've got ideas, that those ideas can be considered to be implemented in the business. Often that's a really important bit of sort of feedback from staff, that they've got the tools to be able to do their business effectively. So, if a system is broken and they can voice that and that system gets changed, you can't underestimate, that helps you as the business owner, of course, but you can't underestimate how much that means to a staff member as well. And I liken it to a little bit like a marriage. If you put no effort into your marriage, it's only going to head in one direction. There's only one outcome there. And the same thing with staff. It's not just good enough that you've hired them and that you can pay them every fortnight or whatever it is. That exchange of monetary value isn't enough to build a strong relationship. You need to put some energy and some care and some focus into it to make sure that they feel valued. And as a result, there's arguably a 40% discretionary element in most jobs. So that is, I can come to work and deliver 60% of my productivity and properly tick all the boxes. But I've always got 40% up my sleeve. And if I'm a really engaged employee and I'm really keen to do the right thing by my employer, I can probably deliver another 40%. And so the question is, how do you solicit that 40% out of your staff members?
And a common theme we sort of hear with our clients is that they want to find another them, to work in a business, which, truth be told, no one's ever going to work as hard as you or as committed as you. But trying to find someone as close to that as possible will serve your business well.
And I think, if your business model is reliant upon you finding someone that's going to, multiples of you, then you probably don't have the right business model. It's probably a result of poor product or poor pricing rather than poor human resources.
And I think it's important to also find someone that complements your weaknesses. So it's not good to find someone that's exactly like you, that has all the same traits as you, but someone that's able to complement your weakness to basically take the business to another level that you're not capable of.
And that's true for building a team as well. It's you need to think about when you add an additional person to a team, are they going to complement the existing people? Something we often think about in our business. And finally, retention is a really important consideration, because once you have a great team member and you spend a lot of energy training them and they really get to know your business, of course you want to retain them. And so, I think people mostly stay for the work and the culture. And also, the culture has a big impact on their team members. There's a really big social element that human beings enjoy from working, which again doesn't necessarily mean they have to be friends out of work, but they have aligned desires and goals. And so if people are coming to work to learn more, to deliver on a certain sort of promise to clients or deliver a certain product, or to really do what your business is doing, that they're able to work with like-minded people that share those values and common goals, and they get a lot of value from that. And so to build a culture that allows that to happen, that encourages that growth, the chances are then you'll have good retention as well. So, of course, there's some tips for you. Of course, we could probably talk for hours on this topic, and every different industry and business is going to have their own experiences. But hopefully, some of those tips helps you manage your own team. Okay, that's it for this week. Until next week, bye for now.